Hey everybody, welcome to the Conversation Factory. I'm your host Daniel Stillman. I'm going to make this short and sweet because it's a beautiful day here in New York City and I'd like to, get outside and go for a bike ride. Just saying. I'm going to talk to you today about visual conversations. This is a really important idea for me and also I think for hopefully for you too. I think it's because most conversations are like drawing on water. And what I mean by that is when the interface for our conversation is just air, there's no trace. You can draw a line in water, it creates ripples, but then the ripples die out. And that's a real problem because every conversation we have, certainly the ones we have at work, are about something important. And if we don't have that track, that record, that visual of the shared pool of meaning that we had created, we run the risk of just running from life ineffective day to day. And that's a problem for me. And a lot of this came from some ideas that formed up for me in one of my great podcast interviews with Dave Gray, author of Game Storming, as well as many other books, Liminal Thinking, amazing stuff. What Dave sort of helped me reflect on and understand was why drawing with other people, why creating a visual record of your dialogue can be so helpful. And by the way, I'm not just saying drawing, we're also going to talk about sticky notes and why they're effective. For me, the other thing that clicked was when I went to Harvard's week-long negotiation program, I found that I was lost at the negotiation table. I went partly because my friend Leland Mashmeyer, who is the creative director, brilliant creative director of a yogurt company you may have heard of. He said that it was one of the most astounding, eye-opening, and life-changing workshops that he had ever been to. And I went and I found, I thought I would be an okay negotiator, but I was a little lost. And it turned out what I was lost in was I had that itch. I had to use sticky notes and paper and the whiteboard to try and track where we were getting, what we knew, what we agreed on, what we saw in the same way. And what was weird is that sticky notes are not the normal way of working for a lot of these mediators and negotiators. So what I had to do is I actually had to use invitation. I had to ask permission to use my preferred conversational interface. And it was a little sobering and humbling to have to ask permission. And this little envelope icon here, that's because invitation is so core to my personal conversation operating system. And I had to use invitation to get somebody to try and use my way of working. I found it really effective. I found it transformational to be able to create a visual record of where we were getting in the negotiation. And there's this idea of how we get from data to wisdom and the amount we get for how much effort we put in. This diagram I first saw maybe almost a decade ago. John Kolko gave a talk at the Illinois Institute of Technology at a user research conference. And it really blew me away because there was this idea of wisdom doesn't come for free. You have to get there together by having a shared pool of data, a shared pool of knowledge and information. And the way to get there is, I believe, through visual means. Visual conversations enable a mindful and intentional path towards shared wisdom. Next time I do one of these videos, I'm going to talk a little bit more about how post-it note hygiene and affinity clustering mastery can help you get there. But I just wanted to spend today just sort of meditating on this idea that rather than the leaps of logic that we try to zig and zag around in conversations, a visual conversation approach allows us to track where we started, where we are now, and where we want to get to. And if we get off track, we can bring it back. If there's a gap between what you think and what I think, we can see the gap. When we see the gap, we can potentially close the gap, or we can at least discuss the gap. And I found that in my own negotiations, in my own workshops, in my own meetings day to day, that I can't always close the gap, but if I can name the gap, that's a tremendous win. And it's only because of these visual conversations that I always try to have. I hope that this video helps just open your perspective a little bit differently on trying this way of working. If you're in the product world, if you're in the innovation world, if you're a manager, getting up to the whiteboard might be something that you automatically do anyway. But I know that there are more sharper, more direct, more refined ways of doing it. And in the next couple of videos, I'm going to talk about specific visual tools that can help you track your dialogue. Things that I'm going to link to, previous videos where I talk about opening, exploring, and closing as being a way to track your conversations, using your room as your agenda. I'll also link to the conversations with Leland and with Dave Gray, which I think you'll enjoy. Thank you so much for joining me this Facilitation Friday. Have a really wonderful day, and I'll talk to you next time.